going to take a breather here now in my voice, and have any questions, Bob or Rob, or any points you want me to make. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, how do they have an early line when they don't even know who's made the team yet? That's
okay. Okay. Great question. I have the answer. Again, this is in the, as Rob complimented, the what do you call it? The 101 supercomputer, Rob.
Yeah. The supercomputer.
I didn't hear you. Supercomputer. How could they have the line when they're just doing OTAs in the middle of May now, right, and they'll have OTAs in June, and then after the OTAs in June, like June 20th, everyone gets off for a month from June 20th to July 25th when training camp opens again. Now, we all know last year training camp was done remotely with whatever it's called, help me out, guys, Zoom or whatever. But whatever the NFL, they have zillions of dollars. They
Virtual.
made sure the coaches were able to coach players in the gym or wherever they were.
Right, they went virtual.
We asked the question, how could they have a line now out already? Is that the question?
That is the question.
Okay. They know the bookmakers in Vegas who supply the odds to the good site, the evil site, and any of the new modern gamblings, DraftKings or whatever the others are. The bookmakers there, those guys are probably in their 50s or 60s, which means that they're behind me. I'm going to be 77. So I know, immodestly speaking, more than they do. What they do is they make a line for each game that they know the public is going to bet into the early line, and they make the line more difficult for the public to bet on because they know the public favors certain teams and the public favors favorites. Whatever anyone does in the future, do not, if you bet 10 games, 8 or 9 should be underdogs, maybe 1 or 2 favorite. If you bet 20 games, 18, 17 should be underdogs, dogs, shorts, 2 or 3 favorites. 30 games, 25, 26. You cannot make money betting on favorites, giving 8, 12, 9s, 5. NFL games come down to 1, 3, 4, 6. You know this, right, Bob?
Yeah, I sure do.
All the games are like 31-27.
Yeah, they are.
21-20.
Yeah.
They're all going for the tying or winning score in overtime or something like that. You don't get a game 38-7. If you get a game 38-7 and you lose, chalk it up like your ice cream fell out of the cone.
Right,
so like you bought an ice cream cone and you walked 1 foot with your girlfriend or your wife, and the ice cream came out of the cone on the floor. It's lost.
Right.
To use a word, it's for fallen. It's gone. I mean, you bought the ice cream 5 minutes ago for $2, and it's lost.
Right.
So how many games are 42-10? Most games, you go at the end. All the games. So if I didn't answer Bob's question, let me go back and give it a more thorough answer. They'll make the odds on a game higher than they should be based on the knowledge that they know the public likes certain teams. Dallas, the Raiders, the Giants, the team that won the Super Bowl. Everyone, not everyone, but people who don't bet properly bet on favorites and teams that they think are going to win every game. Let's get this straight
because
now.
They're a big name team from the past, and they still think they're living off it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And living off it for years, not only
that's what I mean.
What happened. Yes. So they'll make a game. I'm not going to. I don't want to use names because then it. I mean, I could use names because it doesn't really matter. But I'll say Team A and Team B. Is that okay, Rob?
That's fine. Yes.
Team A is the first game in which I could look at in my book already. I have my book ready. If your bettors out there, get your mead book and get everything written down, unless you just want to wake up Sunday morning, have breakfast with your girlfriend or your wife or your friends, and have a glass of wine and a cigar like one of my dopey friends does, and says, well, who do I like today? You can never just pick up Sunday, who do I like? Because the key to betting, it is, as I've told Rob he knows this as well, it is never, I repeat, never about this week. It is always, not week one, of course, because there's not. Mm-hmm. It is always about who the teams played last week and who the teams played next week. So week one is a crapshoot for everyone. Right. They didn't play any. All they played was exhibition.
That was going to be my second question to you. Is it harder in the very beginning because you don't know? And a lot of teams aren't very good, but they'll play a home game and they'll play over their head. So is it, as it goes on, does it get easier to bet as compared to the beginning of a season? Because I think it does.
To me, and I don't mean this immodestly. To me, to answer your question, that is correct. To me, it gets easier to bet as the season goes on.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Yeah.
Because when you finish the 3 exhibition games, everybody now, let's say, pick a team. We'll pick the middle of the country, Indianapolis. Now, I don't want to pick Indianapolis. They're a good team this year.
They are.
Team A. Team A could lose the first exhibition game 20-7. The second exhibition game, 31-17. The next one, 28-10. So you look at them and you say they did nothing in 3 exhibition games. But take a look at what the statistics show. I'm going to throw this in now ahead of time, way ahead of time. Rob knows this. I no longer watch games. I shall repeat that for people out there who are learning or wanting to learn or will bet. If you're going to ask me, how do you not watch a game and bet on it? It's very easy. There are better ways to spend time than trying to root for your team. There are no angels sent by the Lord to root for Team A, because then what happens to the angels that are rooting for Team B? You can't do nothing but drive yourself nuts, up and down, up and down. I look at the scores the next day, sometimes Sunday night, but mostly Monday morning. No matter what you think, you can't root your team in. There is no such thing as rooting your team in. If somebody is rooting for his team and next door in the same apartment building, the other guy is rooting, how are you going to tell me who's going to win? Somebody rooted harder? There's no such thing as rooting.
Right. You're not playing, so you can't, right?
It's like a roller coaster ride, up and down, and you want to throw the remote at the TV a minimum of 10 times a game. If I'm wrong, somebody call in and say I'm wrong. I defy anyone to tell me I'm wrong. So now back to let's not leave it, because Bob said a good thing. They'll make the line bigger because they know the public likes certain teams. Now, when the public bets the line, like now, it's already changed a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, because not everybody wants to bet early. My contention is I bet early and bet on underdogs because the following reason. When people start betting on the games, like the line came out right after the schedule came out. The schedule came out May 12th. May 12th at night and May 13th, the lines are in. So now it's May 24th tomorrow. The lines have been out like 12 days. People are going to bet, and they're going to bet an incorrect line. They're going to bet based on what the odds makers in Vegas have shot the line to all the DraftKings, the good site, the evil site, wherever you find your betting, they will have given the number. And when the number changes and the public bets mostly incorrectly, I'll repeat that, the public knows nothing. I had a friend who used to always give points, 11, 14, 13.
Yes, sir.
I used to tell him, how the F are you laying 11, 14s, and 13s. And he answered me, well, the public likes them. What does the public know?
Right.
The public's working all week. They don't have time to follow all the nuances and vagaries that are required. They may not even have a book to. I have a photographic memory, and I still use it. I'll repeat that for anyone out there. A photographic memory. I can remember games that happened when I was 12, 15, 18 years old. But have a book to remind you and keep notes. Because if you're betting with real bullets, which is real money, whether it's a $10 bill, a 20, a 50, 100, or you're betting thousands, whatever you're betting, it's none of my business. I don't want to know. But you better be keeping records, because you can't keep things on little pieces of paper and hope like, oh, I forgot what I did. In the book, write down every bet you had. Put down Dallas at Tampa Bay. By the way, the opening line with Dallas and Tampa Bay on the 9th. On the evil side, it opened up 6.5. 6.5. The good side had it 6. So I won't go into. Well, I'll only touch on it now, but this is a little more sophisticated betting. I gave the 6 on the good side. And on the evil side, I took 6.5. Now, you're asking me, how are you betting on both sides? Well, the answer to this is, if the game ends 30-24, which it could end, or 26-20, right? Or 23-17. Any game could end by 1, 3, 4, 6, 7. These are all the magic numbers. That's why they make 3.5s. If the game ends by 6, I'll tie with the 6 that I gave, and I'll win with the 6.5 that I took.
So
that's
one gets X'd out, and the other one you win with.
Right. You can't lose. You could either win one. You could win one way and tie another, or you could win both ways. But you can't lose both ways. You could either win. You could win one and lose one. So you would lose what is called the vigorish. And for those who don't know gambling, it's the vigorish, but it's short for the VIG. That's the money you give. You have to give 10% on all bets, sometimes 5%. You have to give, like, on a $10 bet, you have to give 11 to 10. On a $100 bet, you have to give 110 to win 100.
Right.
And right. So when you're able to catch a middle along the way, you could win one way and tie the other. How about this? What if the game opens up 6.5, and the public, who doesn't know anything, bets the wrong way, and the game goes down to 3.5? So now, if you took the 6.5 early on, and now it goes down to 3.5 at the opening of the season, and you give the 3.5, after taking the 6.5. If the game ends by 4, 5, and 6, you win both ways.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is a little more sophisticated betting than I wanted to talk about tonight. I wanted to make the ground rules, not the ground rules, but the suggestion, because there's no money changed hands here. There's nothing. This is all for the public, right? The guys, for their knowledge, and if they,
at least not tonight.
At least, yeah. If they want more information, anytime. In other words, if I didn't say it last time, and Bob, tell me if I did answer your question. Yeah. They make a line early on while nobody has played. The OTAs, organized team activities, they haven't, injuries haven't happened, things haven't happened. But anyone who bets has to remember, if you bet early and injuries occur, some injuries are going to go for you and some injuries are going to go against you. That's just the way of the land. Right. If you bet on a guy to do well on a seasonal performance basis and he gets hurt, you'll say, why did I do that? No. He got hurt. How about a guy that you bet doesn't perform well and he gets hurt? Well, then you know, what I'm saying is, I hope it's clear, guys, right? In other words, if you're betting a seasonal bet where someone gets injured and you lose, someone may get injured and you win the same bet with a different guy.
Right.
Well, you may have a bet that requires someone to have 1,000 yards and he only gets 980 or 9. You'll say, shucks, I just missed. Well, you just missed. If he gets hurt and he doesn't even get 400, how about a guy that you bet doesn't get 1,000 yards and he gets hurt in week 2? Well, you'll know at the end of the year you're going to win a bet already because so injuries will balance out. You'll win some, you'll lose some. Like the old saying, you win some, you lose some, and some are rained out.
Right.
Or you win some, you lose some, and some are married.
So, Herbmeister, I do have a question for you I have to ask. Herb, so here's the question.
Go ahead. We're approaching an hour. Let's call a halt at an hour, okay? I want to just relax. I talk a lot.
Oh, Herb, we will close off
we're
an
learning
hour,
a lot.
no problem. And you're welcome to come on anytime.
Go ahead.
So
what do you want to ask? By the way, both of you ask any questions now because before you ask, Rob, did I answer your question, Bob, about how you can bet early?
Yeah, absolutely.
In other words, again, just to sum it up, the public knows nothing. They'll make the odds. The public will bet into it, change the odds, and then I'll adjust to what the public mistakenly did. I'm betting them first, knowing I know better than they do. Then the public bets erroneously, and I'll react and change what the public did, and then I'm sitting what I'm hoping is in the right saddle, okay?
So basically, they're throwing out a fake number at you to trick you in because that team looks good and you always thought they were great.
I wanted to know if I answered your question. I have a habit of not always answering the question directly.
No, that's fine. No, you did. You know what? I got one more. Like, what? How does Vegas always seem to get, like within 3 or less? Is that how they do it?
You mean how do they come close?
Yeah, my brother wants to know that.
Well, for instance, like the guy who made the 1.5 the Knicks became 1. The Knicks became pick'em because they are paid and they are knowledgeable. I don't want to make it seem like every casino bookmaker who's making the odds doesn't know anything. They know a lot. They're making millions of dollars to make the line. But sometimes they're not infallible. In other words, they're knowledgeable enough to many times have the game 7 and it ends by 7 or 4, or it's right around the number. But that's why Bob. That's why they throw in the 3.5, 4.5, 5. There's some magic numbers that they know. Like 5 is a trap number. Because if you're giving or taking 3 and it goes into overtime, a field goal is 3, but a touchdown is 6. You follow?
Yep, I do.
So I don't want to say they know nothing. They know a lot. They're being paid to know a lot. They're being paid to get the line as close as possible. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
So I do want to ask
Rob, you wanted to ask something.
Yes. So my question is, what is the most important variable in betting that nobody takes into account? Nobody considers that you wouldn't think of.
That's a great question.
It is, Rob. It's a great question.
Let me think for a second. Well, I would say. Without thinking too much, that nobody takes into consideration that everyone should. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, the aspect or variable that no one thinks of. That's very important. It should be thought of.
I know the answer. I've already said it. I'll say it again. When you write down the schedule of each team, like all Buffalo, the whole schedule, 18 games, then the next page, Miami, right? Now you have each team. Look at now week 1. No, there's no game before week 1. There's like 10 days to a week or 10 days before after the third exhibition. So now week 1, you start fresh. Believe it or not, this is what nobody takes it. Rob, you said what nobody takes into consideration and should, right?
Yes. What's the variable that nobody thinks of?
Yes.
And they really need to consider?
Okay. Here's the Here's the variable. It's based on the schedule, and it's based this way. Stop thinking that these guys are like aliens or automatons, if that's the right word, or robots, or they're like unbelievable. All you need to do is look at the injury report. They're human beings. They have the same frailties, only they're great athletes. There's such a thing as after week 1 and 2 and 3, once you're into week 3, you know what happened in week 2. In week 1, after week 1, now you're into week 2. In between each week, like 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, am I clear on that? There's such a thing as a letdown game from what they played that week. They'll be let down the following week. And they'll be looking ahead the following week. Or they'll be let down the week before. And this is the example I give everyone. I give it as in the NFC East. If week 4, the Giants are playing Dallas at home, Dallas at Giants. Right. And the following week, the Giants go on the road to play Cincinnati, a heretofore weak team. And then the following week, they have to go to Philadelphia. That means it's Dallas at Giants, Giants at Cincy, Giants at Philly, or Philly at Giants. Those, after the Dallas game, they're going to be let down for the Cincinnati game. The schedule is full of those games. They do it deliberately every year. In other words, you have to, when you look at each team, you have to pay attention to who the team played last week, who they're playing this week, and who they're playing next week. Right. These are the words to remember. Is it a letdown game for the following week? Is it a look-ahead game for the following week? Is it they're going to fly? Here, I'll give everyone an example right now. The first game of the year for the 49ers, they fly from the West Coast to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. They're going to get in on Saturday night and be on West Coast time and get to bed early, even though it'll be West Coast time. They'll get to bed by like 10. It'll be 7, really. They'll wake up the next morning, be draggled, because it's a 1 o'clock start in Philadelphia, even though it'll only be like breakfast time for them if they were in San Francisco. Then they fly home to play the second game. And then the third game, they have to fly back across the country to play. I forgot who. I don't have the schedule in front of me. The key thing to answer Rob's great question, you have to know who they played in any week last week, who they're playing this week, and who they're playing next week. And the things to put in on your notations are, this is a letdown game. Now, if people are going to have to say, how do you know what's a letdown game? You shouldn't be betting, because that means you haven't been following all the teams. Dallas Giants would represent they'd be let down. If Tampa Bay is playing New Orleans and it was Breeze and Brady, they're both going to be left down. Miami is going into New England for game 1. I think they're going to win, but that's beside the point. They may, they'll be up for that game. In week 1, everyone is going to be up for the
Everybody's
game.
up. Even the teams that aren't that good, so it's harder to beat them. That's true.
Right.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
So Rob, to answer your question, did I answer it? The key words are look ahead. Are they looking? By the way, don't let anyone tell you that teams don't have the schedule. This is a known fact for 100 years, the league. They have the schedule. As soon as it comes out, it's all over the locker room. Yeah. And teams go over them with a big red mark, circle the games, whether it's in September, October, November. We want to win that game. Don't let them tell you we're only focusing on this week. Sure, they're focusing on this week. But they're everybody got Tampa Bay with the bullseye on because Brady won last year. The year before, Kansas City won. Yep. So the champions are going to have everyone gunning for them. You knock off the champions, your city is going to love that, right?
Right.
Rob, did I answer your question?
You answered it absolutely 100%. Knocked it out of the park. Grand slam, Herbmeister. You got to watch out for the letdown.
Okay, I'm glad.
Always consider the letdown.
Look, here's how you do it, people. Everyone. Put L/H. That means look ahead. Okay. You put that because doesn't Dallas look ahead for Washington? Doesn't the Chiefs look ahead for Denver? Sure. Don't the Raiders look ahead for the Chiefs? If you don't know the team's rivals, you shouldn't be betting at all, right? Everybody, even if you're betting and you only have your team, you should know the rivals. So L/A is look ahead, that game next to that, or LD, they will let down. What happens if a team plays an overtime game or a game 38-35 and they lose at the gun?
Right.
Doesn't somebody know to put down they're going to be let down next week?
Yeah, I got to tell you, Herb, like my brother, and you're right, most people don't think about that. But my brother and I, we've known that for a long time because my brother was a trainer in the NBA, and he would tell me whenever they had to make those long trips, they didn't want to go. They were exhausted. You know, you go. My brother used to say it when I was a kid. You go to the game, you pay. You're like, yeah, I'm ready. Oh, they're gonna win. Oh, and these guys come out there half dead, and you don't even realize why. And that has a lot to do with it.
But a lot of people don't realize why because that's not something that they've learned if they're not betting. Along the way. And Rob, thank you for that compliment that I knocked it out of the park. As long as I wanted to be clear on it, it's okay, right? That is the thing that most people never think about or pay attention to, in my opinion. In other words, evaluating, again, week one, everyone is sky high to win the game. But after you look at the results, what happens if a team A and team B in a game, week one, the team A is winning 24-7, and you see the results at the end, and you read the box score, who scored, who run. In other words, the information you get from the game is much more. I'll repeat that. The information you get at the end of the game to tell you who's passing well, who's catching well, is more important than watching the game and getting absorbed in the game. Right. So if Team A is winning. Here, I'll use two teams that are not. If let's say Dallas is at Tampa, not let's say they're at Tampa Bay, week one. Let's say they're winning 28-7, third period against Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady pulls one of his magic acts, and they lose the game 31-28. How do you think they're going to feel at the end of the damn game?
Right.
They're going to be let down, aren't they?
It's going to be a killer.
28-10, 28-7, and all of a sudden, I'm using Brady as an example because, as Rob once did, remember when we did the Atlanta game? The Super Bowl, when you gave me the recreation?
The great comeback?
Yeah, when I told you, don't tell me he won the game, Rob was giving me the recreation. And remember I said, Rob, yes, I know, he won the game, right?
It was the reenactment of the comeback.
Rob reenacted the game, Bob, right? You remember, Rob? You were saying, as soon as you said, where do you hear this? I said, don't tell me he came back with like 17. Remember, Rob?
He did.
I do. I remember. I remember the whole story.
Yeah, you were telling me from the beginning, and I say I know what the punchline is already.
Right.
But the main punchline is, can you imagine if Atlanta, that was a playoff game, and they had to play the next week? You could bet your whole life against them.
Right.
They're let down. It's human beings. They're not.
Right.
They're not Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
They're not clones, aliens, predators, automatons. They're not in from the
outer space. You know what?
Outer space.
Yeah, and that's
flesh and blood. Just check the injury report every week. They're really flesh and blood.
Yeah, no
so,
kidding.
Rob, let's finish. Anything you wanted to say after that? Everything was answered well.
I think so, Herb. Rob, you got anything to ask?
Yeah,
no.
we're at 10 o'clock. Why don't we tailor any final questions on this? And if you want me back at any time, and I hope people are calling in or writing in or whatever, and I'll gladly, as we get, especially as the season is on, or
We'll definitely have you on again,
We
Herb.
would love, first of all, we'd love to have you on whenever you want to come back on. Right.
How did we do for the first one? All right.
We did really good.
It was great.
We did really good.
Rob, you happy with it?
I'm very happy with it. And I'm glad you told.
Everyone's going to be happy with it.
You may.
Okay. Any last question from Rob, and then we'll say good night. Last question for each.
We just wanted to break it down and explain to everybody, what this is about and the right way to do it. And you're right. You made a great point about these guys. There are nights when they're just not with it because of all the travel. I remember one time UCLA had to fly 3,000 miles. My brother was a trainer, and the kids just didn't want to go. They didn't want to go to Philadelphia, and they showed it. They got beat by 30 by Villanova. I mean, they didn't even care about playing.
I'm pointing out. I pointed that out because it's a glaring thing on the pages when you see San Francisco flying to well, actually, wait a minute. I made a mistake. Let me correct it. San Francisco in week 1 is flying to Detroit. That's the West Coast to the East Zone in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Then the following week. You know what? Let me make this as accurate as possible.
I'm sure you will.
because 2 out of the first 3 weeks, the 49ers have to fly across the country. That is a huge disadvantage to West Coast teams because they're flying in and the time. It's the book I need. I don't need the computer. Hold 1 second, okay?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Seattle has the worst time of it because they got to fly the farthest because they're so far up in the corner.
Yes, of course. Well, those are the notations you make.
Right.
Here, listen to this. San Francisco, I have marked west to east. San Francisco at Detroit, fly west to east. They go back home at the end of the game, Sunday night, and hold on. They fly to, all teams have to be can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, all teams have to be at the game site the day before. There's no such thing as coming in the same day.
No,
a lot of people don't know that.
No,
so whenever they fly, they'll either fly Friday or Saturday for Sunday.
Get in a couple of days before, yeah.
Right, you got to be there because God forbid anything happens, they got to make it.
Sure.
All right, the first game, San Francisco flies Saturday afternoon and get in late to go to sleep. And they're at Detroit in the opening week. Mm-hmm. Now, Bob asked, how do you know, what the line is? Well, the line opened up San Francisco. Where is it here?
Are they like a 3? Maybe.
Hold on, listen to this. San Francisco, the opening line was 7.5. San Francisco at Detroit with Goff. Goff is now on them. Instead of with the Goff played against San Francisco twice a year for the last year. I took the 7.5 with Detroit. So they get in on Saturday. They play Detroit. I think Detroit might upset them, let alone the game will be a close game. I don't look for San Francisco to beat Detroit with a new coach and a new general manager and Goff. So I took the 7.5. Now they fly home Sunday night. They're off Monday. Tuesday, they get the films. Wednesday, they put in the game plan. Thursday, they work out. Friday, rest. Saturday, fly. The following week, back to the East Coast. San Francisco at Philly in week 2. They're flying west to east 2 consecutive weeks. Do you think that's not going to wear on them with a football game again? And then after those 2 games, San Francisco at Detroit, San Francisco at Philly, the third week, Green Bay at San Francisco. They'll have all to do to be up for that game after 2 flights.
Right.
Have I made my point?
Yeah. I hope. I would think that Frisco would hope that Rodgers don't stay.
I took the 7.5 already with Detroit.
Yeah,
I think Detroit has a chance of winning the game outright.
No, I would too. That's a great pick.
Now, but you know what might happen? Right. Is that Bob speaking?
It is. It is Bob.
Rob, you'll like this, says Bob. I took the 7.5. What happens if some people all of a sudden decide, hey, this game is too high? 7, 6.5.
Right.
Let's say it ends 5.5. I'll lay the 5.5 with the Niners, and I'll have a 6-7 middle. Can the game end by 6 or 7?
Sure it can.
So I'll win both ways, or win one and lose one.
Okay, so
or
when
win one and tie one.
So you can bet.
Herbmeister has won more than he's lost.
That's right. We'll close the conversation now. I lose a lot of games, everyone, but I win a great deal more than I lose.
Herb, thanks for coming on, buddy.
My pleasure. Anytime. Call on me anytime. Stay healthy, guys. Stay well. Good night, Rob. Good night, Bob.
Good night.
Good night,
Nice
Herb.
meeting you.
Good night.
Good
Pleasure entirely. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.